Welcome to Love and Growth Podcast. My name is Jason. This is Danielle. Thank you guys so much for being here. And this is an idea or a topic that's actually come up a few times very recently, very quickly.
Yeah, I'd say we've had like several people in your circle, my circle, and um, kind of talk about this. So I wanted to go into it a little bit because we have the experience and, it's how to handle your partner, specifically the male partner, when they go into a state of darkness, whether that be anxiety, depression, like just
All of the above.
something, yeah, something that triggers them into a dark period, and kind of how you handle that as the woman. And of course, this is something that can go both ways. Like, of course, like women can have their darkness too, but I want to kind of focus on when it happens to the man, because I feel that when you're in a dark place, it affects the household because you are the leader. So when you're negative, like you are such a strong masculine, which I love, but also when things go bad, like things go bad. So you could walk in and be negative and it's like, oh, okay, I don't want this energy to affect me, but whoa, now I'm negative. Like just because you're strong presence.
I get it. Yeah, no, I mean, those happen, those times do happen and they happen, sporadically, but I mean, anybody that's kind of running their own business, doing their own thing, growing their own thing, or just trying to do something bigger, like there are days that you just want to burn the fucking world down.
Of course.
And those types of things happen. And I know exactly what you're talking about in the sense where it's like when I'm down, like, don't touch me, don't talk to me, like just get away from me. And I know that I kind of put that out into the universe, even though nobody else needs that. Like I'm dealing with it. It's my own shit. But I think it's hard as just myself. I can't speak for anybody else, but like, it's harder not to let that go anywhere else because I have so many thoughts that are running through my head all the time. Like I'm working through business, I'm working through finances, I'm working through home, I'm working through you, working through just trying to get everything situated. So I'm managing everything in my head. And if everything is negative, like I can't put a positive spin on anything, regardless of where I'm at. It's like I'll find a way to make it negative, and it just seeps through my pores.
Right. And that's completely understandable. And like you said, it's normally coming from you have to sit in that place so that you can grow. But as being the partner, how do you handle that? Well, from being the female partner, I kind of put up a shield to protect myself. So it's kind of like, I know that when you're in your lull, that nothing is personal to me.
Right.
Nothing you say or do is something that you're doing to hurt me. It's not something you're doing to attack me. I know that, so I don't take it personal.
Right. And it's not even that I'm saying anything specific.
Right.
It's just, it could be the tonality.
It could be the tone.
It could be just
exactly.
it's just the way things are coming out.
Correct. Or that if like your negativity comes out, then like I'm going to hold up my shield. I'm going to pretend. I literally will pretend I have a shield in my hand and that I'm holding it up so your words just bounce off. Yeah. Because they don't affect me because they're not at me. Right. And it's kind of almost the same with your energy. When you come in with that negative energy, it's like, I need to protect myself from that because that's yours.
Right. That hasn't been like that. Like that's not a forever thing for us.
No.
It used to turn into just World
War III, yeah, because I used to butt heads right. I didn't always understand that it wasn't at me.
Yeah. Yeah, you used to take me being frustrated at work as like you did something with it just because of the way I was acting.
Yeah. But it's also, I would take it personal because I'm living this life with you. And so if you're down in the business or your health is down or your workouts are down or just if anything like your diet, like mainly your health, but and your attitude, I look at it as a reflection of me. Well, I used to look at it as a reflection of me.
Right.
Because we're in this together. And it takes a lot of like open communication between the two of us to know that when you're in that place, it's not my fault. It has nothing to do with me.
Right. And before we get out of that, like it was hard not to just say like I'm sure it was hard for you. Like it was hard for me because I was so used to just going. Like and then you would snap back just with the littlest thing, and I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like what are you saying? And that became to escalate things because it was like you were taking it personally, so you were snapping at me, then I was snapping back at you, which made everything 10 times worse. So then it was like I wasn't just frustrated at the business. Now I'm frustrated at business. I'm frustrated at life. I'm frustrated at you. Like, fuck it, I'll burn the whole thing down. Like, I don't know why that is the natural tendency, but like I'll burn the whole thing down and just that's it. We'll scrap it. And I think that was a big thing where it was like we had to get out of that cycle of I would get down because let's face it. I mean, if you tried to build something bigger than yourself or got into things for yourself, like it happens a lot. Like the negative thoughts, the negative mindsets, like not so much the full mindset, but like we'll call it self-talk that you do to yourself.
The negative self-talk.
The negative self-talk it just eats you alive.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, one thing went sideways. This was supposed to happen. This didn't happen. Why isn't this working? That did this. And you just blame yourself for everything because who else is there?
Mm-hmm.
So just having that and just feeling that load. But my only staple, and I knew what I wanted was you, or my rock. That was my staple. So the fact that we couldn't communicate in those times either was like, shit, now there's nothing. Mm-hmm. So at this point, like, if I have a choice between nothing and nothing, like, I will burn nothing. I will burn it all and we will have nothing. And I think that was a big shot to the arm when we were like, hey, like, when you started to react differently to it and just not engage with it right away. Mm-hmm. I think that started to really lower the temperature down, but also allowed me to have that time to go through it, process it, because like we've always said, like the only way that you can grow is through the struggle. So I need to fight those internal battles, those internal struggles in order for me to build up stronger.
Right.
So, I'm going to have that shit show, but how you reacted to it is always, that change was a huge difference.
So what I would say is what I learned the most is when you're really in that place, just to hold space. Just hold space and love you. Yeah. And that's it. I cannot fix your problems for you. I cannot attack you because then you're just going to, like you said, it makes it 10 times worse. I just have to let you know I love you and I'm here and just hold space and let you work through it. Yeah. Until it comes to a certain point, and then I will kick you in the dick and tell you to go get your shit done. Like,
yeah. Famous words were never spoken. But thinking about that and thinking those ideas, letting me go through it and struggle, I think it's a place where it's so hard to give space. And you talk about like just showing love and loving me. And I think that's such a misunderstood part of it, because when I'm in that state, and this is full transparency, like I don't love me at all. I'm like, I hate everything about me.
When you're in that state, you're hard to love. Yeah. But
that's not much different than other times.
But when you're hard to love is when you need it the most.
Yeah. That's because because I've created this idea in my head that nothing works for me. Mm-hmm. None of this works. None of this works. None of this works. Regardless if I just had the best day ever the day before or an hour before, one thing goes sideways and it's like, F it all.
Yeah, but these times too, like, they're not just a day or here, like, they could be months.
There's been months. Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of misconception, especially from like outsiders that look in, and again, we're speaking from experience, is that, oh, well, it's depression.
Right.
Oh, well, it's, he's got this. Like, and making up excuses for the behavior or going through, because we did at one point, we went through the antidepressants, we went through the anxiety meds, and it was nothing.
Nothing changed.
And then, there was hormonal things that we found.
My hormone levels were way off. It was because, and let's just go into that, because that's a process that gets overlooked so quickly, even though it's a more well-known process now. When we first started going through this, I went into the phase where I am like, I'm yelling, I'm screaming, I'm carrying on like an asshole. Like, what is wrong with me? It got to the point where I was like, what is wrong with me?
Yeah, because there would be times where you were screaming like red in the face, and then there'd be times where you're like crying over there, and then like you'd be fine, and then you'd be having a panic attack, and then and I'm like, what is going on?
So we did. We went to the depression route.
Yeah, you went through the depression medicine. Nothing helped.
I tried 3 different depression medicines of a total of like, I don't even know, months of just seeing the same results over and over again. I said, listen, can you just check my hormone levels? Like, just check where I'm at. And it was to the point where like my testosterone was like non-existent for where I should have been. Yeah. It was like between stress and everything, like I was gone. So once we saw that, it was like, holy crap! Like we need to make some adjustments with this. And it's not, you do want to look at some natural remedies and stuff like that before you jump on any type of medication. But it got to the point where it was so low that it was like, we need to medicate this. So then we got away from the depression medicine, which I was so excited that we got away from it, got on the hormone replacement therapies, and I was just like, it was like night and day difference. I still had the episodes, don't get me wrong.
Well, yeah, I mean, it takes time to balance out, and you're still going to have those episodes too, because they're not all triggered from that. Like some of your episodes are triggered, like you said, you're building a business, you were trying to grow, and there's always going to be times where you struggle.
But it didn't have that drastic swings that I was having.
Right.
It took the rough edges off, we will say. I mean, we still have the peaks and valleys, but
of course,
instead of having a sharp spike, it was a rounded time.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't hit those heavy things. So, I mean, I would say if you're out there and you're struggling with something like this, I know depression is kind of the big buzzword in mental health or anything like that. Like, get your hormone levels checked. Like, for me, that was a godsend. When I found that out, like, it was like, oh my God, it makes so much sense. All the side effects, everything was just like, holy crap.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was bad. But I think I watched so many people go through it and probably have the same tendencies that I had, that are just going to rush to go on a medication that's not only not going to help them, but we have no idea what the long-lasting effects of some of these medications are.
Right. So, I would definitely say, get your hormones checked. And again, like I want to kind of go back to being an entrepreneur and having those times as well, because even though like now you're balanced out, like there's still things where if something goes wrong in the business, like you don't want to get in the gym. You want to eat like shit. Yeah. Like you just don't want to take care of yourself. Yeah. And then that affects me too, because then I'm like, well,
because I don't give a fuck.
Yeah. And then I'm like, well, why should I give a fuck if you don't give a fuck? And that's another place where the woman has to be supportive.
Yeah.
But there also needs to come a point in time where you do need to get pushed.
Yeah. I mean, you can only have a pity party for so long.
Right.
And I think that's one thing that we tend as men, and again, it might just be me, but we tend to look at it and we go, well, don't you know what I'm dealing with? Like, can't you understand? And it's just a bullshit story, because it's like, I could not easily fix it, but at the same point in time, I'm wasting so much time. And the first thing that I'm going to let go of is my health, because I'm focusing on so many other things. Like, I'll get in the gym when I can. I'll eat right when I can. I'll just grab quick, whatever the fuck it is. It doesn't matter. But the idea is, when I'm in that state, it's like, there is no care. There's no anything. So to have you just hold space, and then at the end of the pity party, which doesn't need to keep going on, it's like, okay, like, get out and get done. Like, go get it done. What else are you going to do? Like, you're just going to sit here and think about it? You're going to do it? And I think having that shock to the system is a huge thing. But a big but. Like, if there's no trust factor between the two people, if you give me the, well, what are you going to do? Like, go
Right.
get
Go
back to
handle
work.
your
Like, go
shit
handle your
now.
shit.
Yeah.
Like, if we don't have a level of trust and communication build up to that, and we've talked about stacking those wins with everything, like, I'm ready to punch in the face.
Right. But I want to go back a little bit where you said, like, what do you mean, don't you understand?
So,
Because if you're not communicating, I don't understand.
right.
If you're not telling me what is actually on your plate, I don't understand. And that was something that we had to break through, because for a long time, you would almost take that as your protector role.
Yeah, I carry the burden.
Right? I'm protecting you from all of this. Where on my side, I was like, no, babe, you're actually making me worry more because you're not talking to me and I see you. So that is like a big thing, because you do assume, hey, you know what I'm going through. Hey, you should understand this. Like, you don't have the business, but you should understand what I'm doing. Like, we love you, but we're not mind readers.
That's so stupid. Yeah, I get it. I mean,
So,
to stop and think about it, it's like, that's so dumb.
But it does happen.
All the time.
And that was one of the things that I had to sit and talk through with you, was that you think you're protecting me.
Right.
Whereas that just makes me worry more, because I'm like, first of all, I can see you. Like, I see you, I hear you, I'm with you. Mm-hmm. Why won't you tell me why?
Yeah. And I think back on now and I go, I don't know if it's a good reason. Maybe I thought like you wouldn't get it. Maybe I thought like you should just see me go through this you should just see me go through this and accept that I'm going through it. Like, and it's so stupid. Oh my God, it's so stupid.
But I think that taps into your ego. I think that's your ego.
Yeah, why are you questioning me?
Yeah.
Why are you questioning me? Don't you have faith that I know what I'm dealing with? And that's 100% ego. And it's sometimes that's needed, because let's face it, if you're building something, you have to feel like you can do shit. So to already be down on my own ego and then to have you come over and be like, what are you doing? Like, yeah, fuck, heads explode and everything rolls. But I think what you're getting at, that ego part, is a huge trigger, because as men, we put up such a wall with this ego. And let's face it, like, we've heard this numerous times over the last week, like, men are still, we're all little boys inside. We are. Like, we're happy, we're playful, we're this, we're that. Like, we still have that essence inside of us. But it's also so fragile on the ego as well that it's like an egg. It just fucking cracks. So when I'm already kind of getting beat up at work, getting beat up, and then I get a fight from you, there's nothing left. I don't have any stable surface.
Right. And so I think that's where the importance is, to really not assume what your partner thinks, and to have that conversation. Because I think once we had that conversation because you're assuming I should know, and I'm over here like, you're not protecting me, I'm worrying, because you're like, I've got the burden. And then it's just, you're like in your own zone. And then I've got all these thoughts rambling over here in my head, because we aren't on the same page.
You know what I think it also is? It's a fear of judgment from me. A fear of judgment that you're going to look at me and think I'm weak because I can't handle it.
Right. I think that feeds right into the ego thing.
Right. It's another fearful thing.
Yeah.
So
fear.
Not just the ego, it's a fear thing. It's a fear of judgment. It's a fear of being less than.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I'm supposed to be able to handle this. I'm supposed to be able to do this. Like, we're taught, like, you go. Like, you don't fail at it, you keep going. And when you get a setback and you realize, like, damn, like, what do I do?
And, from that, I think that plays a big role in the dance of the feminine and the masculine energies. Mm-hmm. Because for you to be vulnerable with me, I have to be in my feminine. Yeah. And for me to really be in my feminine, nurturing, caring role, I have to trust in you.
Yeah.
So it's all like a little dance, but that's the importance of those. Like, if you have a solid foundation, if I know that I can trust you and that I am safe and that I am secure and that I am provided for, then I'm going to be more in my feminine of the nurturing, of the caring, because that's really my role, my job, which then allows you to be vulnerable, which then allows your true masculine to come through, where you are open and you are honest and you are giving me your all, even in that time.
Yeah, because even in that, like, to talk about masculinity and things like that, like, being vulnerable is masculine because that's the ultimate sign of being comfortable in it. And and I think we get all twisted when we hear vulnerability and that word gets thrown around as like a sensitive word where it's not about sensitivity. It's being in a comfort and safe space where you know that the other person's not out to stab you in the back with it.
Right, because you have to feel for me to be in my feminine, I need to trust you. And for you to be in your masculine, you need to trust me.
Yeah.
And when you can actually let those two things out, it's really beautiful. And life just, those moments, it is a dance instead of a war.
Right. It can very easily turn into a war. Like, if you show up as a masculine and I show up as a masculine, and it's like, we're going to butt heads. Like, we're going to go to war. Because at this point, I'm going to fight tooth and nail to be like, I am running this show, like, back the fuck off. And sometimes you need it not as a direct conflict, but like you kicking me in the dick and be like, well, like, go get your shit done, go hunt. We got to get this done. Like, you being able to pull that out of me and me go, even if I want to kick you when you say, like, I really want to just kick you.
Throw me out a window.
I want to throw you out.
That's normally what the threat is. I'm going to throw you out a window.
But that trigger is like, yep, you're right. Like, it's time to go. Like, enough. Let's go. And it triggers an action that has to come the other way around. And that's, I think, the thing that separates a good communication and a bad one, in the sense that, are you having an efficient communication enough that at the end of it, there's an action that takes place, that immediate switch that goes.
Right, because if you try and push your husband before he's ready, or your boyfriend, like whatever it is, but if you try and push him before that time, then it's going to turn into a fight. So like you first have to hold space.
Right.
You first have to love. And then when it's enough is enough, then it's like,
yeah, you can't, there's a fine line in when enough is enough. Like, there are some times, I mean, you know, I did go through, when my hormone levels and stuff were off, like, these would stretch on for weeks. And it would be like a month of just like, what is wrong with me? 2 months of like, what is going on? Now it's like, all right, let me throw a little pity party, and they get shorter and shorter and shorter until it's just like, you know, half a day you're just like, all right, well, what are you doing? Are you getting this done? Like, where are we at? What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? And it's like, yeah, we got to fucking go. Like, we got shit to build.
Right. And I think that also comes from, one, your hormones are balanced out.
Yeah.
But two, it comes from learning that, I'm going to use the term dance again because I think it's a good visual.
Yeah.
Right? So we learn, okay, when you get into this state, I need to sit here and hold my space, and you need to just go through it. And I will hold up my shield, and I will know none of this has to do with me. So I'm just going to stay over here and love you through this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
and then, okay, babe, your pity party's over. Like, go do what you said you're gonna do. Go provide. Go kick some ass. Like, do what you got to do.
Yeah, because I mean, it's. I mean, if we're putting visuals out there, like, I'll come down like a bat out of hell. Like,
yeah, you will.
Like a flame. Like, it's just a flamethrower, just constantly.
Yes.
Spraying everywhere, and I think that's so hard in the sense that, you know, even though it's not directed at anybody, so like the flamethrower is not hitting anybody directly, but it's out there. It's just spraying in the universe. And then it gets to the point where it's like, there's almost a switch inside where you're like, as a man, I'm like, I know I shouldn't still be dealing with this, but I'm finding reasons to stay in that place. So in my head, I'm like, now I'm trying to I'll just make plans for this. I'll just make plans for that. Or I'll do this tomorrow. And it becomes, once you start realizing that the excuses are starting to come out and the delay tactics are coming out, like, you're pretty quick on just being like, just go get shit done. Like, just go get it done. Like, and I think it takes a responsibility factor and a comfort factor in the relationship to just be like, you're right. Like, you're absolutely right. I do want to kick you in the teeth or throw you out the window, but you're right. So it's time to get to work. And I think that's the biggest thing. And it's funny because a lot of people, I think, especially as men, the first thing that people want to go to is like, well, how do I help him? How do I do this for him? How do I fix this? I know you said at the beginning, like, how do I fix him?
You can't.
Like, there are zero things that you can do for me that will fix me in that situation. Like, no physical anything will fix that situation.
Yeah. And let me be clear, like, I am not saying that any of this is easy.
No.
Because it's not. It is not easy. And when you come in like a bat out of hell, like, it is hard for me to not let your negative energy affect me and put me in a negative state.
Right.
But through the work and through the learning process and through this dance of it, like, we kind of have learned how to make it a little bit easier on ourselves.
Yeah.
But again, like, there's still times, like, when you're in that, like, there's times where I'm like, I don't want to be near you. Like, I don't even want to be in the same room with you. I don't want to be in the same house with you. But I love you, so I am.
Right. Here's the other thing, and this kind of just struck me off the outside because we're talking about, like, know when to engage, know when to, hold space, know when to engage. You know when the worst time to engage would be? After I've gotten past it. To bring up a struggle after I've gone through it, I would lose my shit 10 times over. Because, like, if I've gone through it, I'm like, okay, I got it, I figured it out, and I start working, and then you come in, we're like, hey, like, I'm glad you're doing better, like, I think next time you go through that, maybe you should try this. I'm going to be like, are you out of your fucking mind?
You're going to be like, get the fuck out.
I want to tell you, get the fuck out. Because, I mean, at that point, like, I've already worked through my shit. I've learned the lesson I need to learn. I need to move on. Like,
right.
I'm not going backwards.
Right. And that's women do. I know I do this, and I know women do this. Do not throw it back in his face.
Yep.
When he makes that step forward and he gets out of that place, you can't bring up all the stuff that happened in the place.
Yeah.
If you want to go through it, then you go through it. And you do it in that place.
Yeah.
So, like, what I mean by that is, yes, hold space.
Yep.
And when you're ready to be like, get off your ass, like, enough is enough, that's when you go through, I'm not dealing with this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have X, Y, and Z happen anymore.
Yeah.
And then kick you in the butt and let you go do what you need to do. Because if you wait until after and he's already taken that first step, it's just going to start another argument.
It brings it straight back down.
And that's going to take your trust away.
Yeah.
Because now you threw it in the face.
Yeah.
If you say, like, okay, I know we're getting ready to, like you are getting there, like, we need to talk about this because I'm not going to have this happen the next time you're in this place.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is going to be a next time.
Yep.
We're human. There's going to be.
100%.
So if you can learn little bits by little bits of how to use your shield, of how to just hold space, of when to kick him in the dick, like,
yeah.
It goes a long way. And it is a process, and it's not easy. But the most important thing is that you have that communication and that trust built when you are in good times. Right. Because that's going to help you through the dark times.
That's where the consistency and the priorities and all that's the non-negotiables. That's what builds your rainy day fund. Like, you're going to have rainy days. Everybody's going to have fucking rainy days. But that's how you build that fund up, is you build that trust factor by like doing what you say you're going to do, telling the truth, like a broken record, but also holding true to the non-negotiables. We go out every week on date night. We do our board meetings. We have our family day. We do the things that we say we are going to do, we do. And when it doesn't happen, we have to figure out why. And sometimes it takes both people. Sometimes it just takes one. But at the end of the day, the things that are said that we're going to do, we work our ass to get done. Or we're moving towards getting them done. It's not like things are just sitting there out in the open.
Right.
And that's one of the hardest things as a man, when you look at these things and you go, I broke trust there, I understand, and then it comes back at you again. So like I go through my pity party, I'm angry at myself, I'm pissed off at myself, and then I trust that you are not going to throw that back at me. When you throw that back at me even if it's the slightest, like, hey, I thought you were getting this done, or I thought this was coming, or I thought you were doing that, like that just throws it back into the cycle again. And I think building that up, and we used to go through that exact thing. It was like, well, I thought this was coming in, and I'm just like, I can't, like, things change, things move, things adapt, and we have to move on. And
what that did was make you stop telling me what was going to come in.
Yes, I stopped talking to you about the business, and that put up a wall.
Yep. Yeah.
And it was like, all right, fine. Well, if this is going to keep coming up, then I won't tell you until I actually do it.
Right.
I remember that. I do remember that conversation. It was like, I'm just not going to tell you that. And then it got to the point where you're like, well, what's going on? And I'm like, nothing. And then you're back to fucking lying again. Like, I hate to say that we keep saying the same thing over and over. Like, tell the truth, do what you say you're going to do, follow through and do it, but build trust to each other by doing the things that you say you're going to do and holding true with your non-negotiables to make it all happen.
Right. And that's where once we do have that communication, once you were like, well, this is how it makes me feel, then I know, okay, well, I'm not going to nag you about that.
That's hard to have that conversation.
Like, don't nag. If he is in his darkness, in his pit, going through his shit, the last thing that he needs is you to be nagging. Don't do it.
When are you going to feel better? When are you going to do this? When are you going to do that? When are you going to do this?
It's going to make it worse. It's going to make him worse. So, like, write it down if you have to. Like, write down all your bitching in a journal. Do something. But do not say it to him. Do not nag at him.
No.
Do whatever you need to do to make it not come at him.
Yeah. That's true statement.
And, like, and most importantly, I think it needs to be re-emphasized is, like, when your husband or boyfriend, whatever it is, like, is going through this time, it is his to go through. It is not your responsibility as the woman to take that weight. It is not your responsibility to take on that energy. You can't take his anxiety for him. You can't take his struggle for him. You can't take the depression. You can't take the work. Whatever it is that he is going through, you cannot fix it. You cannot put it on your shoulders because it's his to go through.
It's a lesson for him to learn. He has to learn. And I think that's something that you hit a strong nerve for me personally, because this is something that I deal with even with my clients. And this is something I had to learn not to do too. When I walk with somebody on their journey, I'm working with somebody, my one-on-one clients, what I'm doing when I'm helping them with their business, and I try to do too much for them. So what we learned was it wasn't, I'll walk next to you. But what I was doing was, if we're going up that mountain, I'm going, fucking getting up the mountain, whether you like it or not. Like, I will carry you, and I would carry people up there. This is the same scenario. If you're trying to carry your boyfriend, husband, significant other out of that, you're missing it, because when they get to that top or they get past that cycle, what happens is there's a resentment that happens. So I was getting clients results and I was getting resentment because they didn't have the opportunity to learn from the process. So if you're taking it from your husband or your significant other or your wife, whatever way it goes, give them the opportunity to learn from the process, learn from the pain, because only through pain do we get to grow and do we get to learn. Because let's face it, when things are good, we don't get to learn too much. We don't
No,
get it. We don't get
the learning
life
comes
lessons
from
and stuff
there.
from you. If you think back to all your life lessons, you didn't learn to ride a bike because you were already good at riding a bike. It's because you fell off and you scraped yourself up. So my clients didn't get good results because I got them for them. They learned the processes. They put them in, they tested them, they worked it. I went through struggle and pain, however often, and I learned from those pains, and I don't go back to the same pain because I got the opportunity and you gave me the space to go through it and learn from it. And again, it's just like, we'll consider it like working out. Like the first time you work out, you don't get huge muscles. It just doesn't happen. You have to repeatedly tear the muscle fiber. It rebuilds up bigger. It rebuilds up thicker. It builds back up stronger. And everything continues to grow. But only through that pain and struggle can it grow. So if you try to take that pain and struggle from me, I don't have the opportunity to grow into it. Even though you feel with the best intentions that you are trying to help me grow from it. And I just I don't want to see you hurt anymore. I know I feel this way for you. Like, I don't want to see your pain. How do I take it away? I can't. Not only, maybe I could, but I shouldn't. I shouldn't, because you have to go through and learn whatever God or a higher power needs you to learn at that time. You have to go through it. And that's why I think it's so beautiful when you say it, like, you hold space in love. You hold space in your love. And then it gets to the point where if you want to, use the analogy of the shield, like, there's a time where you hand me the sword and we go fight and we go. And I got to go after whatever I go after. And I think that's the biggest thing is know when to hold the shield and know when to hand the sword and allow us to be weaponized together to move forward. Mm-hmm. But you can't speed the process up. Nope. But you can cut it off when you know it's fucking time.
Yeah. Like you said, when you start hearing the excuses, when you start like just, okay, or I'll do it tomorrow, or no, get up and do it now.
Do it now.
Don't wait till Monday.
3, 2, 1, go. I think that's big. And I think having people go through that process and allowing a husband or a significant other or a wife to go through that and learn, when you say it out loud, it feels so insensitive. But when you look at it, and you look at it in the sense of carrying somebody up the mountain, like, I'm walking up the mountain with you. Mm-hmm. If you fall, I'll put my hand out when it's time and allow you to get back up. But then we're going to go back to walking, like side by side. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the part of that needs to be said. But what I'm not going to do is when you get up to walk again, I'm not going to kick your legs out from under you. Right. So I think what you're saying makes so much sense in the sense that the cycle of that pit needs to go through the onset of it, the feeling of it, let them settle into that where you're holding space and loving, and then the time for it to just, hey, here's your sword, go hunt, go kill, and then him taking immediate action back up to it to allow that to really flow through. I think it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of love to allow somebody to do that.
A lot of love and a lot of trust. Because I'm gonna trust that you're gonna come out of it, and you're gonna trust that once you're through it, you're through it.
Right. I know at the end of the, excuse me, at the end of the day, like, I know that you're there as my partner and my other half. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what allows me to feel safe, even in a part of insecurity through that pain. And I think that's what needs to be built up and really shown across the board.
Yeah. So I would say, just to recap, that first, like, get the medical stuff checked out.
Yeah, if you feel like it's gotten to that point, it's worth it to get it looked at, especially depending on age and other factors. Like, it's worth it to at least get a reading.
But I would say, first, do that.
Mm-hmm.
And like we said, hormones are kind of really underrated with what they're testing. So just make sure you get the medical stuff looked at.
Yep.
But aside from that, or past that, or after that, whatever the scenario may be, when your husband is bad out of hell, on a rampage, bombarding everything in the house, as hard as it is, do not consume his problems. They are for him. You hold space and you love. And use that visual like you're holding up a shield if you have to.
Mm-hmm.
But just know his shit is his shit.
Yeah.
You can't take his anxiety from him. You can't take the hurt from him. You can't take the depression from him. Or, whatever labels we're putting on it, whatever it is. Like, you cannot take his darkness from him.
Yeah.
Hold the shield if you have to. Love him. Hold space for him. And after a certain point, and when he starts making excuses or saying tomorrow, and you'll learn this as you learn this process and as you're communicating and as you're growing through this, you will learn when it's time to put the shield down and hand him the sword. And once it's done, it's done. Do not go back into, well, when you were in your pit, this is what happened. Because you'll just start a war with you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to hear it. Once I'm past it, I'm past it. We're moving forward because I think once you hit that, you hit the nail on the head. Like, you can't take it from me. You can't take that pit from me. You can't take the depression from me, nor should you. Like,
it's not mine to carry.
I have to feel that. I have to go through it. And as much as we want to sedate and try to hide those emotions, drinking drugs, porn, whatever the hell else people choose, like, you can't sedate away these types of things. You have to take it head on. You have to feel it. You have to digest it. You have to learn from it. But then you have to be open to hearing, like, it's time to move on. And then you have to fucking go.
Yeah. And the other point I want to make sure we recap too is do not hold back from your wife or your girlfriend, whatever it is. Like, do not hold back from that person that you love. You are not helping them.
Yeah.
You are not stopping from, like, it's not a burden for us to carry. You are not protecting us from something. You are not dumping anything on our shoulders. You're being open and vulnerable, and that's what we need in order to hold that space, because we need to know that it's okay. We need to know it's not us. We need to know where it's coming from so that we can hold that space.
And guys, you're okay saying it. Like, as long as you guys have a trust factor involved, like, I will say this, build the trust first. Start small. Build your trust first. Because when those conversations happen in such a dark time, you have to have some sort of balance. We'll call it like a bank balance of trust in there, knowing that this person is there for you, with you, and to know that, like, you're in a good place.
Yeah.
And I think that part takes a ton of work. Like, lay the foundation of that. And then when these come up more and more as you go through it, you're still building up that trust factor even more. And I think you couldn't have said it better with those types of things. I think you gotta really just go through these cycles and be willing to operate with each other and know that the other person is you're my person. Like, you're my partner, you're my person. I love you, and I love hard. I hate hard. Everything, like, yes, it's a blowtorch in every way possible. But I think having you next to me and then being able to articulate the words that I need to say to you, this is what I'm feeling, that was hard for me. So we grew from that, and that built trust. And then I was able to associate what I was feeling with emotions. Because it's one thing to just talk about what you're feeling, but a feeling to an emotion are two totally different things too. I feel that's this, but I can determine what emotion goes with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to speak on stage. I could be scared, or I could be anxious, or I could be excited, or I could, like, all the emotions kind of work around.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of be clear with that. Like, they're not the same. So just what I feel doesn't mean that it associates with the right emotion. But have those conversations, like have those talks before you get into that pit.
Yeah, have those talks at the good times.
Yeah, good times.
Because, like you said, it's kind of like a bank deposit. Like, if you rack up all that good energy and all that communication, all those skills, then when you're in these times, it's going to help to get you through it.
Yeah.
You can't withdraw from an empty bank.
No. Fucking, you guys are priorities to each other. If you're priorities to each other, like, this is how it works. You're in it together. You trust each other. You love each other, and you just live life hard, and you go.
Yeah.
But
I think communication is the number one thing. Communication and trust.
Safe space, trust, love hard. Like, just love hard, everybody.
Yeah. And let me tell you too, like, afterwards, when you get through it and you do have that, like, your connection is so much deeper.
Yeah.
Like, it's so deep.
Yeah.
When you can get through those and you can be vulnerable and you can be a safe space and you can do that dance, like, your connection is just so much deeper.
Awesome. So, anything else that we missed with that? I think we covered a lot of that, and I hope people can really take some things from that.
I hope so. Yeah. It's been coming up a lot lately, so I hope so. Or if there's anything that you have questions on, like, message me.
Leave us a message.
Like I said, we've been through it, so leave us a message wherever you're listening to an ad or on Instagram, Love and Growth Podcast, and we're here to help. So
yeah. So if you found value in this, please do me a favor, do us a favor, share the show. Share with somebody you think needs to hear this, that have gone through this. You're like, hey, you need to hear this. And we're a Love and Growth Podcast on Instagram. If you're watching this on YouTube, we're on Spotify. We're on Apple iTunes now. I think we're on just about every podcast platform there is now. So please go leave us a review. Follow us on the channels. Get in contact with us. Like, let us know what you think. We want to hit the comments, hit the subscribe button. Really let us know what you think, because we really want to continue to make sure that we're helping and adding value to people's lives, because, like we've talked about a lot of times, we just want to see people win, and we want to see people love, and we just want to see people grow. I think that's the whole process of the whole thing.
Yeah, so for sure, like, if you're going through this, you need some deeper, explanation or somebody to just talk to about it, like,
hit us up.
Let us know. We're here to help. Yeah. We've been there. We know it's not easy, especially when it's the man.
Exactly. So thank you so much again for being here with us. Like all the channels. We appreciate you. We'll see you in the next one. I love you.
Love you.
See you guys later.
Love hard.